Hello and welcome to this month's cybersecurity webinar focusing on cybersecurity incident response plans. And we'll also talk about ongoing maintenance and training approaches to help prevent those attacks. First, I want to say that today's webinar is presented by the Cybersecurity for Small Business pilot program administered by the Wyoming SBDC network. The SBDC network offers no-cost, confidential small business advising assistance for any industry at any business stage anywhere in Wyoming. From drafting a business plan to preparing to apply for funding to succession planning, our advisors are ready to help. Our network also provides government contracting assistance and market research services. Visit our site today to reach one of our advisors. The SBDC is funded by both the Wyoming Business Council and the U.S. Small Business Administration and is hosted by the University of Wyoming. This specific cybersecurity program is 100% funded by the U.S. Small Business Administration. We're going to cover 4 key areas in today's webinar. First, we'll look at what an incident response plan is, what actions you can take if you're the victim of a cyber attack. Then we're going to look at prevention methods, like creating an ongoing readiness plan, and talk about staff training. You will notice there are some documents in the handouts tab. Our last 2 speakers will address those, but feel free to go ahead and download them now, and I'll remind you again later when the time comes. All right, let's start here. How do you even know you've been attacked or hacked by a cyber criminal? Here are some common signs. These are not comprehensive, but these are common signs that you might see. First, have you been logged out of an online account without your knowledge? Somebody might have done that for you if they've been able to hack your account. Are you receiving email or text messages about login attempts from unfamiliar locations or devices? So be careful about these messages. This is a common phishing attempt, so carefully check the address of the sender to make sure that it's coming from a legitimate source. Have you received a notification of a password change on an account? So the same caution here as the previous point. This is also a common phishing attempt, so really scrutinize that email address to make sure that it's legitimate. Are you suddenly getting very random and weird texts or emails with sketchy links? This is a common warning sign that you may have been attacked or somebody's trying to attack you. Are you noticing weird activity like suddenly high data usage or a huge system slowdown? Also a really common sign that you've been attacked. So any of these could be a sign of a hack or a system break-in. So what do you do next? That's where having an incident response plan in place is extremely important. Caden is going to give us an overview of how such a plan might work and what it looks like.
Hi everyone, my name is Caden, and I'll be starting us off by breaking down the basics of what an incident response plan is. An incident response plan is a written document that outlines how your company should proceed during a cybersecurity incident. It should clarify people's roles and responsibilities and provide guidance on key activities. It should also include a list of key people and their contact information so that you can reach them during an incident. An incident response plan will be tailored to your company, and therefore the details of each response plan will vary pretty heavily based on your company. So the best we can do is kind of look at an outline and figure out the key pieces that you should include. There's no one-size-fits-all outline for your company. Everybody's response plan will look different. Getting to that outline, here is an outline that CISA provided of the incident response plan process. My colleagues will get more into the specific steps of this, and therefore maybe what you should include in your own incident response plan based on what they discuss. But this is the overview of what enacting your incident response plan should look like, right? Regardless of what it looks like, it should be able to do all of these things. At the very top, we have preparation, which is preparing for the event. This includes things like making sure your instruments are tuned, making sure that you keep your employees well trained on cyber threats, making sure that you have agency users reporting to you about various vulnerabilities and such, and kind of keeping your company aware and in the know if something it does happen. Once an incident has occurred and has been detected, you declare an incident. You enter your incident response process, and the rest of this chart then takes effect. Ian's going to go more into the actual breaking down the process of the more technical side of how this all looks, but I'm going to give a very basic overview. Pretty much what it boils down to is you're going to have your team that handles incident responses begin doing their thing. They're going to start looking at it and figuring out what's wrong, how to fix it. If it is something that they've seen before, if it's a password leak and you've had a password leak before due to phishing, like a phishing scam, then that's going to be a contain activity. That's something that they've seen. That's something they know how to fix, and they can just use this response plan to fix it, because you should include how to solve common issues on your response plan. So your tech team is going to look at that section in your incident response plan, see that this is how they fixed it last time, fix it, and then adjust whatever they need to make it less likely to happen again if there's anything that needs to be fixed at all. If it's a new incident, that's when things get a little more dangerous. At that point, you need to basically begin figuring out how to fix this new issue. And that could involve third-party teams, that could involve, that could just take a lot of time. It just depends on what happens and figuring out the best way to move forward. Once that's been done, you then want to add how you fixed that incident to your plan. So if that incident happens again, you can fix it going forward. Some other general pieces, now that we've kind of gone over that outline, is that you want to make sure that the document, in whatever state it's going to be a long document, but make sure it is as clear as possible. Use headers, use all those nice features that you have in Word or whatever software you're using to make your plan, to make it as readable as possible, and then make sure that whenever you change something on your incident response plan, all the employees involved in that response plan know that it happened, to avoid confusion during a crisis. The last thing you want during an incident is for your employees to not know what to do. The whole point of an incident response plan is to make sure that people know what they're doing should the worst happen. Additionally, you're going to make sure that employee roles and responsibilities are well defined in advance and on the document to prevent confusion during an incident. You don't want people arguing over who's in what role when an incident strikes. You want to make sure that everybody knows exactly what they're doing, exactly what their position is, and exactly what they should be doing when an incident occurs. Some common roles across all companies that you should include in your incident response plan are as follows. The first one you're going to assign is the incident manager. This is the person who delegates tasks to other teams during the incident, and whose job it is to coordinate efforts to help resolve the incident by assigning other roles as needed. The tech lead, their job is to develop theories as to what's broken and why. They decide changes and lead the technical teams during the incident. The incident manager, pumping back up for a second, depending on the size of the incident, might want to assign multiple tech leads to handle different issues if there's more than one issue occurring. The liaison officer, their job is to send internal and external communications to help resolve the issue. This is your person who is going to make sure that all of your teams stay communicating effectively, and then also handle outgoing information, basically telling your service providers or your customers or whoever you need to what's happening, right? Without making them scared of what's happening. Basically, let them know that there's been a breach and you're working on fixing it, and all of that process. They're also the person that you want because they will handle reaching out to third parties if you need to bring on third parties to help fix whatever problem. Your tech team might not always be able to fix the problem, in which case that will be communicated back to the incident manager, who will then decide if the liaison officer needs to then communicate that to a third-party group to bring them in to help fix the problem. The final role that I have listed here is the scribe. Their job is to basically keep records of what's happening. They're going to make a incident timeline that includes people involved and key activities that occur throughout the event. So that way, at the end of the event, once the event's over and resolved, you can look back at that timeline and figure out what or how you want to change your timeline, your incident response plan based on that timeline to make it work better going forward. The scribe's role is very important, but most of what their work will involve it only kind of comes in after the incident has occurred, but is important for updating your response plan and making sure that it keeps changing and stays up to date.
Thank you, Caden. Now, you might be thinking, how do I even start putting an incident response plan together? I'd suggest a couple of things. First, just do an online search for sample incident response plan for whatever your industry is. Or use ChatGPT or the AI tool of your choice to write you an incident response plan. I would guess that Claude would be a great tool for doing this based on the way that it outputs content. Just provide some parameters in your prompt like your industry type, number of staff members, your general network setup, whether you're Mac or Windows or a mix of those, and what specific hardware platforms you have in your shop. Now we'll move on to Ian, who is going to dive into some specific actions you can take during an attack and how you can possibly recover from it and prevent future attacks.
So, what do you do during an attack? Well, if you have a cloud-based system, it's important to have an email ready to go to send out to your provider so that way they know what's going on and can begin working on their side to start shutting things down. Or if you have a more direct line of communication, start calling them in order to help let them know on the situation and do the exact same thing as shutting everything down. It is also important that on your end, you begin disconnecting systems from the network to minimize the impact, as the cloud can still send information between both the cloud systems and your systems. It is also important to ensure that any sensitive information is not currently being uploaded to the cloud, so that way you can hopefully keep some of that information out of any potential nefarious hands. Meanwhile, for in-house, what you should start by doing is shutting down the Wi-Fi. This allows you to make it so that way the hackers don't have access to your network anymore, so that way they can't get any information off your computers, and everything stays on inside your own internal network. It is also important to start disconnecting the infected systems from other databases or other systems, so that way the viruses or any information cannot be spread or transferred in ways that we do not want. And it is also important to not shut down the infected system or systems. Now, why wouldn't you want to shut down the infected system? That sounds counterintuitive. Well, that comes down to being able to identify the attack and the scope of it. So the log file is a special file inside of your computer that logs all the interactions between systems, other systems, and what actually goes on your computer at any given time. And when you restart and shut down the computer, this log file is deleted. So this one file can help to identify the attack, who allowed it to, or what allowed it to happen, and potentially even who executed it, along with what information was grabbed, what information was moved, and how everything tended to happen. So this allows us to identify what was compromised. And we want to be able to identify what was compromised simply because we want to know what information was lost, what information was grabbed, what happened, and what is currently going on the systems. And it's also important to be able to inform any partners or consumers if their information is compromised, as if you're working with other businesses, it might be important to let them know that they could be next in line for an attack of this same style. And for consumers, it's also important to let them know when their information is leaked and what they should potentially be looking at doing in order to make sure they do not have any compromises themselves. And it's also important to use the same file to identify if any other systems have their files locked down, or if there's any other problems inside any of their systems, as just shutting down the computer does not remove any viruses from the computer. They can still exist on it and can still cause problems, as well as being able to identify systems that might be victims of ransomware attacks, where you can no longer access any of the files and it shows, hey, pay us money and you'll get your files back, but don't do that. So how do we recover from this? Well, the first thing to do is to start by looking at vulnerabilities and patching them. So you need to have updating the software on a regular basis to prevent any attacks from happening again that happened in the past, or to make it harder for those same attacks to happen again, as well as to keep your antivirus updated so that way the antivirus can identify any of these potential malicious software and quarantine it and prevent it from happening, or even to prevent the system from accessing any sketchy websites. It's also important to start restoring from backups. This is where the ransomware attack is most commonly defeated, as ransomware attacks the system itself and prevents any of the files from being saved up on it. But if you have a backup of that same system, all you have to do is just put that backup of that system onto the compromised system, and it will completely remove the ransomware, and you'll get majority of your files back, depending on how late you did your backups. Next, training. People are the most common attack avenue for cyber attacks, whether that's phishing emails or profiling. So that way, people use the information in order to try and find people that they think are susceptible to phishing attacks, or they could potentially get information that could allow them to access their network because of passwords or anything. So reminding people and going through the training process again, as boring and as mundane as it can be, helps to build habits, which helps to build better and better security. And finally, we need to work on building back trust with consumers and business partners, showing what you have done, what you are doing to make sure this doesn't happen again. It's one of the things that isn't always commonly talked about, but if you do this, you'll typically be able to move on and continue to build as a company. So here we're going to do a little demonstration on how to turn on Windows Defender. As you can see down here, Windows Defender currently says that Actions is recommended. And just for posterity's sake, I am currently not connected to the internet as for safety reasons. So there are two ways to enable Windows security. One option is to simply click on the little shield icon down here on the bottom right, but that is not always an option. So I am going to instead go here to the Windows Start menu, open it up, and simply click on the settings. Now that I am in the Windows settings, I'm going to just expand this so we can see all of the available options. Now, I can either be up here and simply type in security in the settings and it will show it to me, or I can click down here on privacy and security. So here we are. And next, I'm going to click here on Windows Security. Here we can see all the options. And right here, we see virus and threat protections. Actions are recommended. So I'll go ahead and click on that. It'll pop up with this new window, and we will go ahead and expand this to show everything. So currently, there are no threats on this machine. However, the virus and threat protection settings are currently turned off. So to simply turn it on, I can just go ahead and click this turn on button, but I can also manage settings. By going into here, we can see all the different aspects of Windows security. So here we have real-time protection, which is automatically turned on. Same with dev drive protection. These can be turned off, but it's important to have them on, as these are meant to help protect your system from ransomware attacks, as well as being able to detect any potential viruses on the software immediately. Now, cloud develop protection. This is going to be the same as having a cloud-based backup. So to turn it on, simply turn it on. It'll ask if you want to make changes, click yes, and it will enable it. Automatic sample submission simply sends files to Microsoft to help protect you and other potential threats. So this is Windows' way to help make sure that if one system is compromised, it can't be compromised on other systems. Once again, simply turn on, and then tamper protection. This prevents any other users or any other devices from accessing your computer in order to make sure that it cannot be changed without your express permission. Go ahead and turn that on. Now here, right here on firewall and network protection, we have domain network, private network, and public network. Public network is going to be the dangerous one here, as if you are at any coffee shop or anywhere with free Wi-Fi, this one is what allows people to get through and access your information if you do not have a firewall or other sufficient protections enabled. Private and domain networks, still important to have firewalls on there as it can help prevent any devices on those same networks from accessing your computer without your express permission. So I hope this short demonstration on how to use Windows virus threat protection will help you in making sure that all your systems are protected and are ready to be used when needed.
Ian hit on several vital issues here that we've talked a lot about in these webinars. Importance of keeping your software updated to prevent vulnerabilities, doing regular data backups to help you recover from an attack, and keeping your staff trained on basic cybersecurity readiness. We're going to hear more about that from Mari in a few minutes here. He also talked about making sure Windows Defender is enabled on your system. And that's especially important if you are not running a standalone antivirus tool. We don't mean to ignore Mac users, but iOS has a lot of those protections built into the base operating system, and you can always run an antivirus program for extra security. Let's throw it to Izzy now, who's going to talk about putting an ongoing cybersecurity readiness plan in place. As I mentioned at the beginning, there are a few handouts available in the Handouts tab that our next couple of speakers will address, so feel free to grab those.
Hello everyone. Let's switch over to the ongoing Cyber Readiness Plan handout. This will be a helpful resource during today's session and afterward to keep your small business cyber safe. First, let's talk about keeping your software and systems up to date. Hackers target outdated programs, operating systems, and browsers. Regular updates close security gaps, so I recommend enabling automatic updates for all your business tools and devices. Next, security tools like firewalls, antivirus programs, and encryption need regular attention too. Cyber threats evolve, so make sure to stay ahead by keeping these tools updated with the latest patches. Data backup is also crucial. Regular backups help you recover from cyber attacks or system failures. Store backups in multiple locations and always test them to ensure they work when needed. Also, access controls are key to protecting sensitive information. Review user permissions regularly, remove unnecessary access, and enforce multi-factor authentication to prevent unauthorized entry. Next, let's talk about policies and procedures. Having clear cybersecurity and incident response plans ensures your team knows what to do in case of an attack. Regularly reviewing them keeps your business prepared. Outdated hardware is also a security risk. If devices no longer get security updates, they're vulnerable. Keep hardware updated to protect your systems. Employee training is essential. Regular training and phishing tests help prevent costly mistakes. In Wyoming's small teams, ensuring everyone is cyber aware can make a big difference. Third-party vendors also pose risks. Review vendor security practices to keep your business safe. Finally, if you use platforms like WordPress or Shopify, keep everything updated. Cybercriminals target outdated plugins, so secure websites are crucial for businesses that rely on online sales or bookings. By staying on top of these, your business will be more resilient to cyber threats. Cybersecurity is ongoing, but a strong plan protects your business, customers, and reputation. Now that we've covered what needs to be updated, let's talk about when to update them. Keeping up with cybersecurity doesn't have to be overwhelming. Having a set schedule makes it manageable and ensures nothing gets overlooked. We'll start with a quick example of how you can structure your update plan and break it down into weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual tasks to keep your business secure year-round. So right now we're looking at an example of a checklist for regularly scheduled tasks to keep your business protected. So this should clearly outline what needs to be done, how often, who's responsible, and also a progress status. This type of schedule is super flexible and can be adjusted to fit your business's needs. Now we're going to break down the tasks by what to complete weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually. Weekly tasks are quick but essential. Run antivirus scans to catch any threats early and check for urgent patches or software updates. Cyber threats evolve fast, so addressing vulnerabilities right away helps keep your system secure. Monthly tasks take a little more time but go a long way in protecting your business. install software updates, review and adjust access controls to ensure only the right people have access, and test your data backups to make sure you can recover important information if needed. Quarterly, take a deeper dive into security, conduct vulnerability assessments to check for weaknesses, review and update security procedures, and evaluate third-party vendors to confirm they meet security standards. If a vendor has weak security, it could put your business at risk. Finally, annually, it's time for a full security audit. This includes penetration testing to identify any hidden vulnerabilities and updating your incident response plan to reflect new threats and lessons learned over the year. By following this schedule, cybersecurity stays manageable and becomes part of your routine rather than an afterthought. Now I'm going to hand the presentation over to Mari.
Hi everyone, today I'd like to discuss the employee training section of your ongoing cyber readiness handout. I'll be briefly covering an employee training outline for both new hires and ongoing training for yourself and your current employees. This guide is meant to show you some structuring examples for your policies, so please feel free to edit this document to however it fits your needs. But some topics we'll be outlining in the handout is phishing training, USB usage, device safety, remote work security, Internet of Things safety, company-specific policies, fundamental cybersecurity awareness, advanced threat recognition, data protection and compliance, and emerging technologies and evolving threats. New employee training ensures that every team member understands the basics, like creating strong passwords, recognizing phishing attempts, and securing their devices. This sets a tone for a culture of security from the very beginning. Phishing training is critical because phishing remains one of the most common attack methods. By teaching employees how to identify and report suspicious emails, you can significantly reduce the risk of a successful attack. Simulated phishing exercises are a great way to reinforce this training. USB devices like flash drives are convenient but risky. Train employees to avoid using unknown USBs, scan devices before use, and use encrypted USBs to prevent malware and data breaches. Consider using another method altogether for file storage and sharing, such as cloud-based platforms instead. Device safety is another essential focus. Employees need to know how to keep their devices secure, whether it's updating software, avoiding risky downloads, or locking screens when not in use. These small habits can prevent big problems. With remote work security, employees must understand how to secure their home networks, use VPNs, and avoid public Wi-Fi for work-related tasks. This ensures that sensitive data stays protected no matter where they're working. Internet of Things, like appliances and physical devices with software, introduces new risks. Smart devices can be convenient, but they're often vulnerable to attacks. Training employees to secure these devices and keeping firmware updated is key to minimizing risk. Finally, company-specific policies ensure that everyone is on the same page. Tailored training helps employees understand the unique protocols and tools your business uses, so they can respond effectively to threats. A business in the healthcare sector may include encryption of patient data in their company policy, but a restaurant wouldn't necessarily need to have that same policy. In your handout, we outlined some examples of what topics would warrant some ongoing training for yourself and employees. In Quarter 1, we focus on the fundamentals. This includes password security and management, teaching employees how to create strong, unique passwords and use password managers. We also cover safe internet browsing, like identifying secure websites and avoiding risky downloads. Finally, email security protocols help employees recognize phishing attempts and report suspicious emails. These basics are the building blocks of a strong cybersecurity mindset. Moving on to Quarter 2, we dive into advanced threat protection. This includes training on social engineering tactics, where employees learn how scammers manipulate people into revealing sensitive information. We also focus on suspicious activity identification, teaching employees to recognize unusual behavior in systems or networks and responding appropriately. These skills are critical for defending against more sophisticated attacks. By splitting training into quarters, we ensure that employees not only learn the basics, but also build on that knowledge to tackle advanced threats. And remember, cybersecurity is not a one-time effort, it's an ongoing process. In Quarter 3, we dive into data protection and compliance. This includes training on sensitive information handling, like teaching employees how to securely store, share, and dispose of confidential data. We also cover secure file sharing, ensuring that employees use encrypted methods to transfer files and avoid risky practices like emailing sensitive information. Compliance is key. especially for industries with strict regulations, so we make sure everyone understands their responsibilities. Moving on to quarter 4, we shift our focus to emerging technologies and evolving threats. This includes a threat intelligence briefing to keep employees informed about current threat trends, like ransomware, phishing, and supply chain attacks. We also discuss emerging threats, such as AI-powered attacks and deepfakes, which are becoming more sophisticated. Consider creating interactive exercises for employees to complete, such as how to spot a deepfake. Finally, we share best practices for staying ahead, like adopting an always verify approach and regularly updating security tools.
Great. Thanks, everyone. I just want to wrap up here by mentioning our Cybersecurity for Small Business program. We can help you with quite a few things with our no-cost program offerings. First of all, we can help you with access to cybersecurity tools and training. We also provide short and long-term individualized advising through our own advisors and our partners at Cyber Wyoming. We can help you address a specific cybersecurity issue or do a full inventory and assessment of your systems and help you put policies and procedures in place to make you more cyber ready.